Good afternoon, fellow Plexers. Today's video is going to be a brand new Filebot video with some updated expressions, and I also want to talk about why I don't use Filebot's default expressions for Plex server, which can be very handy for a certain type of Plex server owner. But I name my TV shows from TMDB, and my own custom expressions work better for that. And I add some extra things into both a movie and a series expression, and I can show you how to use a source ID from both IMDB and the movie database for your movie library media, and from both TMDB and TVDB for your series library media. Filebot's default expression names both series and movies from TMDB. So that's kind of what I want to get into, while also going through adding all of my custom expressions and describing what they do. First off, I want to say just because I don't use Filebot's default expressions doesn't mean they're not perfect for certain Plex server owners. Filebot's wonderful. The developer has helped me personally refine my expressions, and my last major update was from 2004, maybe January-ish or something, and he recently helped me to handle split episode file names or split movie file names, and I've incorporated that into my default TV show expression. I'm not likely to have a split movie, and I'm more likely to join two halves of a movie together with MKV tool mix, but you can use the same principle in a movie expression in Filebot. So a lot of this is going to concentrate on a TV show library. So let's start with Plex's default naming article. And what I want to jump down to is some important notes. Filebot's default expression does not put the year into the folder name or the episode file name. And Plex recommends, especially if you're using the latest scanner and agent, to always include the year alongside the series title in the folder and the file names. So that's one plus for my expressions compared to Filebot's default ones, but admittedly, they do scan in perfectly fine. So again, this is not being dismissive of the Filebot's developer's default expressions. Another area where my expressions might be more enhanced is that it puts extra media characteristics into brackets into the file name for both a movie folder or movie file name and an episode file name. Now this is really only legal in a TV show library. Plex's movie library naming guide does not mention doing this, but I've incorporated this formula into my movie expressions too. So you end up with an episode file called for the TV show. The official separator is used, space dash space, and then the coding for the season episode. Again, that official separator is used, and then you get the show episode name. And then their example is showing a space, and then within brackets that extra media characteristics. I also look for embedded English or undescribed subtitles, so then I have immediately another set of brackets with either English sub or UNDSUB in it to make that notification in the file name. Alright, so that's the differences between my expressions and Filebot's. Extra media information and always having the year in a series folder and file name. So it's going to be a long video because I'm going to just jump in and start adding these expressions. There's something for everybody. For a movie library, you can rename using the IMDB source ID, and it's only a rename. It doesn't create any structure or change any structure you will have. You can rename and create structure with the IMDB source ID. My default is using the TMDB source ID. So here's a rename only option. And because I use this all the time, I put a 1 in front of it to create structure based on TMDB. Now, my movie expressions also add in whether there's an English embedded subtitle or an undescribed subtitle. And this is something the Filebot developer helped me with. This section right here. This section enables you to rename external subtitles like subtitles in the PGS or the SRT format. This adds the media characteristics to the file name: video format, video codec, audio format, audio codec. This adds the TMDB source ID to the folder and to the file name. And this little bit of genius, I wish I saved the name. I got it a few years ago from somebody off Plexaholics. This looks for common edition names and adds the edition tag, which then gets applied automatically if you have a Plex pass. So something that has director's cut in the folder or file name, unrated, remastered, those common names get picked up and added as an edition tag. Now this won't work with custom editions or less common ones. I have a bunch of movies that are colorized while also having the original black and white versions. So I use a simple edition-colorized manual naming change to those. And if I ran them through Filebot again, this expression would not preserve that. So I keep those few colorized editions segregated. I also manually apply edition-4K to all my 4K media, but it's a small movie library. That tag won't be preserved by running it through Filebot. So for a new 4K movie, I use this expression and then I manually add in that edition tag denoting a 4K movie. So my Filebot world isn't perfect, but with the help of the Filebot developer, I have to do less manual renaming as time has gone on. So as we move down, we're into the TV show series expressions. This renames only by air date with TMDB source ID, and it creates the full structure. I'm sorry, it doesn't create the full structure, it just renames. This one is TMDB rename only by DVD order. And that's the beauty of using TMDB uses TMDB versus TMDB. TMDB is always an aired ordered listing. If an episode didn't broadcast as part of the season, it's not included. So this would affect English shows with a Christmas special. You're not sure how it's going to be listed at TMDB. At TMDB, there's an aired and a DVD ordering. So a Christmas special for a British show might be listed as part of the regular season, might be as a special episode, depending where you look, versus aired versus DVD. But if you're ripping your own TV shows, whatever's listed at TMDB under the DVDB aired or DVD ordering, you basically know as they're ripped off the disc, if a disc is supposed to have the first 6 episodes of a show, you know it's episode 1 through 6 of whatever season you're dealing with. And you can just simply rename those raw files simply as SO1, EO1, SO1, EO2, and so on. And Filebot will take care of it based on how you're naming, from aired ordering or from DVD ordering. If you label them as their episode names off the jacket, then Filebot can pick it up for aired ordering or DVD ordering. So we're just going to start adding these, and I'll show you how to get it done in Filebot. Only I'm not going to add them from the word processor. I'm going to add them from a plain text editor, because sometimes when you copy things into a word processing, formatting will change. Like sometimes a regular dash will become an elongated dash, and I don't want any mistakes, so I'll add them from this list instead. And I've got some test media to use, so let's talk about a proper setup that works for the future. And I apologize, this is going to be a long video. I'm not a pro YouTuber, and I've kind of basically organized what I want to get out today, and I expect this video to be close to an hour long. And maybe if I was a pro, I could get the same information out in 30 minutes, but that's not me. I'm not a pro YouTuber. I want to cover things comprehensively, even if it takes longer to cover it. So, because lots of times Plex servers lead to an automated setup through what we call a trash guide setup, and if you haven't heard of trash guides, just Google it. You really want everything in one shared media folder. This is my backup Synology NAS. It's here just to back up my Plex media off my newer NAS, but I have a test server running here with test media. The current server that's running today is in a Docker container. I can stop that and run the package version on this NAS too. The package version would be like a bare metal version under Windows or Ubuntu or Mac OS. So, you do not want a shared folder for movies, a shared folder for TV shows, a shared folder for music. You don't want multiple shared folders for different movie media or TV show media. You want one shared folder. And then, in order to enhance a trash guide setup with services like Radar, Sonar, I am going to suggest, let's get rid of this. I am going to suggest a sort folder for each type of Plex library, with the exception of a music library, unless you really might have multiple music libraries for some reason. Most people would just have one big music library. But maybe you want, I don't know, a mixed type of music library separate. Then you would call this music-libraries and have maybe a music and a music-mix subfolder to point individual libraries at. So this allows one instance of Radar to pull movies to place in multiple different libraries. So certain movies would go into the main structure. If you're having Radar monitor a new documentary, you could direct it to this structure, or a concert video, or a 4K. But the only thing you can't do with Radar is have one movie be pulled twice from multiple libraries. So if you were pulling a 4K movie, you can't also pull the same movie for another library. That's the one limitation. And it's the same with Sonar. Here's the sort folder for multiple TV show libraries. These are just some backup files that I need for today's video. And Sonar can direct regular series into one library folder structure, kids series into the kids library folder structure, and anime into that. In Sonar or Radar, these would be called root folders. And it's a lot easier to manage than having all of those individual library folders all at the same level inside your shared media folder. So I think that's important to mention, and also this improves the efficiency one shared folder. I can take a humongous video file and copy it from any subfolder in this structure and paste it wherever I want, and that movement is instantaneous. If I take any large file from any structure here and I paste it into a different shared media folder, it's like watching paint dry or grass grow or molasses flow out of a cold jar. It just takes forever. So the efficiency is in the one shared folder, and I just think that's important to talk about too. So this is my structure. To use an example, it's labeled cleanly, and because we're running on a NAS that's running Linux, I follow Matt Peterson's rule from the Dockerholics Facebook group. He's also a member of Plexaholics. of no uppercase letters and no spaces until we get into the actual normal structure. The movie folder itself would have spaces and uppercase letters, but no underscores, no periods replacing natural spaces. And the rest of things would be named appropriately too. If you don't see an example of a file name or a folder structure in Plex's support documents, assume it shouldn't be used. Okay, so let's get into Filebot. I'm going to use these as my example. So let me just start with one more reason I use TVDB instead of the default Filebot expression. This series is not listed at TMDB. This is a virtual series only listed at TVDB. I talk about that a lot. So look for Ken Burns films and you'll see that seasons are named this way with episodes like this. And I could find this Civil War documentary series at TMDB as its own TV series. I could find this documentary, The Brooklyn Bridge, at TMDB, but only as a movie. And this would only be listed as a movie or a documentary at TMDB, while this would be listed as its own separate documentary series at TMDB. And lastly, I'm not sure how this is listed. It's a two-parter, so it might be a mini-series or a TV show series at TVDB too. But TVDB has these virtual series entries that don't exist in real life just to make our lives easier. And sure, you may not have Ken Burns films, but you may grab a Three Stooges DVD set. The Three Stooges isn't a TV show, and every single item on that DVD would be a movie short, and you'd have to name it as a movie if you're using TMDB because there's not a series entry. But at TVDB, there is a fake series entry for the Three Stooges, just like there is for the Looney Tunes, just like there is for Tom and Jerry, the old cartoon movie shorts from that era of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So TVDB gives you a lot of flexibility. You can do episode ordering from TVDB or from DVD or aired ordering. TMDB is just very rigid. So this really isn't a Filebot issue. It's a issue where TMDB just has aired order listings, and you really want to use expressions that pull from TVDB for the ultimate flexibility. Okay, so let's start with something. Let's start with Seinfeld. From Ubuntu, I can open and then open with and get Filebot open with this series preloaded. So there's a couple ways to use Filebot defaultly. You can choose match, and then the episode mode, you can use either the movie database or the TVDB database. Let me pick the movie database. Alright, so just by the episode names, they're matching up. Now look, the Busboy is listed as episode 12 at TMDB because that's how it aired. So now if I right click this, I could choose TVDB instead. And the Busboy is still listed as episode 12. If I right click again and I edit the format, I don't do this often. I don't know how to change to the DVD order without a custom expression. So that's a little hang up here. And I'm sure if the developer of Filebot ends up watching this video, he's watched other ones, I'm sure he's going to chime in and tell me how to do what I need to do right from this screen. I just don't know how to do it. My custom expression does it for me automatically. So that's one limitation. But you also see, as I mentioned, there's no year being applied. And this is just renaming it's not creating structure. If you go down here, you'll see two default expressions by Filebot: match episode by title or organize episodes for Plex. So because they're named for the episode name, I'll click that, and this is going to create the file name. But if I choose organize episodes for Plex, it now creates structure. But this is a limitation on this Synology NAS. So I'm in this shared folder media. Filebot can recognize that. It's going to create a media folder called media when I already have a shared media folder. Then it's going to create a library folder named TV shows. Then it's going to create a show folder named Seinfeld with a source ID but no year. And then the episode name is simple, Seinfeld with no year. And this will all work, but it changes my structure on the NAS. And up until the recent version of Filebot, this would fail, but now this will create that structure. So I really don't want that. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to shut that down, start Filebot manually, and let me get rid of this. And I'm going to show you how to add my custom expressions, and then we'll see what they can do once they're in. Okay, so you can rename these anything you want. I'll paste this in the description of the video. But again, my most frequently used ones, I just put a 1 and a 2 in front of it. So I'm just going to highlight this. This is a movie based on IMDB, rename only. So down here I'll click that and click edit. Alright, this is a limitation of my OS and just, I guess, Filebot. I have to make this full screen in order to edit in the new preset. So I'm going to paste this in and choose OK. And now I'm going to go back here and I'm going to just copy this and I'll paste that in the expression field. And I'm going to change the data source to the movie database. So the movie database TV would be for a TV series. This is for a movie. Now, because I'm specifying the source ID, it's going to pull that even though this is marked movie database here. So I just have to save preset. And now when I click here, that's all I see. If I hold the shift key down, now I'll see my custom preset with Filebot's default ones. Alright, so let's go on to the next one, movie IMDB structure. Once I get all the movie expressions in, we'll play around with renaming some movie files. So again, edit, I'm not seeing it, I have to go full screen, edit, new, I'll paste this in, click OK. Well, there's Jonas. I'm actually making this video for him. Alright, so now I'm going to copy this in. And again, this is still IMDB. But now this is structure, not just renaming. So I'll change this to the movie database and I'll save the preset. So if we look at the difference, this expression is still looking for common addition names, but this is just doing the file name. This part is doing the structure, and then we have the same thing here following, and we just have this / separating it. So now we're going to get into a TMDB rename only. So again, we have to change this from the default movie database TV show library to just the movie database, and then save the preset. So now comes my most frequently used expression, and that's why there's a 1 at the beginning of it. So let me do full screen, edit, new at the bottom, paste that name in. Let me copy this. And again, change this to the movie database and save. Alright, so now we've done the movie expressions, and if I click, the most frequently used one is on top. So let's find some media to play with. And I didn't really set this up. I set up a demo for Filebot with TV shows, but I can just go into this and let me see. I want to point out that this is a dummy file. Nope, it's not a dummy file. So let me get rid of this, because I either show dummy files or I show public domain media. This is public domain media. These episodes can be shown on YouTube because they're in the public domain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this whole folder structure and open, and then open with Filebot, which is a nice feature, and I think you can do it under Windows too when you're working off a shared network drive. Otherwise, if it was local, I could just drag it in to the Filebot window. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for movies for this. I got distracted by myself. Okay, so we're going to use the main movie library, and this is all public domain except for this one. So let's open that with Filebot. Okay, so I must have run Filebot showing how to pull in some oh yeah, so this is my issue. This is from a previous Filebot video, so let me get rid of that. Let's open this whole thing up again in Filebot. That looks better. So let me start at the bottom. TMDB rename only. Now if Filebot isn't sure what the media is, it'll ask you. Alright, so you'll see anything with a green dot is the same exact file name. Now you'll see this example of edition-1080p and edition-720p are not standard editions. Just like I spoke about, Filebot's not going to pick them up. But mostly this is how everything's named. Let's see what this difference is. Well, Filebot for some reason is sensing that this is a remastered version. And it's transferring the remaster from this to the new name. So we're not going to rename anything. We're going to choose the IMDB structure only. So again, Filebot can't tell these uncommon edition names. Let's see if it can do it with that. So it's picking up the original remastered edition, and all it's really doing is it's changing the structure to use the IMDB source ID in both the folder and the file name. Here and there. And if we choose the IMDB rename only, it's not going to change the folder structure, so it's not shown on the preview. But now it's changing the source ID from TMDB to IMDB. And again, it's picking up the common edition tags and it's handling these subtitles. So this video obviously has an embedded subtitle, and I have an external subtitle for it, because you see the ENGSUB. It's got this remastered copied over. And the only thing it's missing are these custom edition tags, which aren't being applied. Alright, so then let's go to the default expression, and you see how green signifies it's not going to be changed in any way. Let's see what's going on with this one. Let's look at the structure there, the hitchhiker. Okay, and back to Filebot. So this is a little area, it looks like Filebot's getting confused. So I have 3 files, 2 have the remaster edition tag added, the third doesn't, but it's getting it. And I think this is just a little ghost of being in the same folder with these 2 files that haven't applied. So again, Filebot's not perfectly, but I'm using some extreme conditions. Most likely, you're not going to have 2 versions of this movie with one of them carrying the edition tag and one not. So I'm not really concerned by that issue. And again, it's going to lose these custom edition tags of 1080p and 720p because, at least the way I've got it set up, it's not able to carry that forward. So we've just handled a lot of movie situations. You can name from either IMDB or TMDB, and you can choose to just rename or to create the structure also. So before we get into the TV show stuff, let's just go back to this over here. You don't have to use my full expression. If you don't want the edition tagging option, get rid of that. If you don't want to see the media characteristics, get rid of this. If you don't want to see a notification in the file name for either English or undescribed subs, get rid of that. If you don't want Filebot to handle external subtitle renaming, get rid of this. It's all customizable. This is the important part. This names and gets the name and the year and applies the IMDB source ID. If you want structure, name and year, IMDB source ID through here, and then you have a / to then create the file name, which would only be this far if you didn't want anything else extra added. So these are all customizable. Okay, so let's get into our TV series and we'll rename a few things there. All right, where am I? Whoops. Okay, that's where we're starting off. So well, actually, again, I don't want to use that because that could introduce mistakes. Let me use my notepad. So when you copy these expressions off the description of the YouTube video, copy them into a plain notepad type of application so you don't introduce any formatting changes into the Filebot expression. All right, so that's what we're going to set up next. Edit preset, new, paste that in. Now I can make it windowed. Alright, so we're pulling naming from TMDB only by air date with TMDB source ID. It's a rename only. So we're going to paste that expression in. and we change this to TMDB, and the air date's fine, so we'll save the preset. Now we'll do this one next. New, we'll call it this. Alright, we'll copy this, and remember this is DVD ordering. So we'll change this to TMDB and change the air date to DVD and save the changes. Now we'll add this one. This one is going to create structure based on the air date with a source ID and only the folder, not the file name. At least that's what I think I've prepped for. Let's double check. Here's the TMDB source ID, and it's not in the actual episode name, just the folder name, and that's all Plex needs. Alright, so we're doing structure by air date. So this is what we need. And we'll change this to the TMDB and leave the air date alone. Now we're going to do structure from TMDB with the DVD ordering. So that's what we need. Paste it in. Change this to TMDB again, and we'll change this to DVD and save the preset. Now we're going to switch back to an expression that pulls from TMDB, just like Filebot's expression does, but with all my extra jazz in it. Alright, let's make sure I get the right one. It's this one. So I leave this at the movie database TV, and there is only aired ordering there, unlike TMDB, so this stays as the air date too. Alright, so now this one, let's talk about this. This is what the Filebot developer helped me with last. If you have files that are split, with one episode split across two files, this new formula that he helped me with, let's see, where is it? Right here. This will pick up a part 1 or a part 2 or a part 3 through 9 parts. You really shouldn't have more than a couple anyway, and it will name them properly. Where before, or not before, but without this, Filebot would detect each part as a duplicate, and when you skipped one, only the first part would be renamed, and then you'd have to fix things manually. But this only works if you've labeled things part 1 and part 2. This works if you've labeled things part or PT 1 and 2. So let's go back to our naming guide and let's search for split. Okay, episodes split across multiple files. There's different conventions you can use. CD 1 and 2, disc 1 and 2 with either a C or a K, DVD 1 and 2, part 1 and 2, or PT 1 and 2. I've mostly used part 1 and 2 where I've had to. So the expression has to be adapted for this. So if you've used DVD, you have to change this to DVD. So part here, PT there, or it could be DVD. So let's get back on track. We just have two expressions left. Edit, new. And again, this can be changed to DVD ordering if you want. I'm just going to add it once for aired ordering. That's why I've got in parentheses, adjust for DVD ordering. So I'll paste this in. Again, we're back to the TMDB, so we change that here, and we leave the air date alone. All right, the last expression is the one I'll use most frequently. Paste that in, change this to the TMDB, and this again can be used for either aired ordering from TMDB or DVD ordering. So you might create these last two twice and just rename them for aired or DVD. But so really, you won't need all these expressions. You'll pick the ones that you'll use most frequently, and always know that you can pull my video up to get to these expressions again, or just copy them out of my video and save them in the cloud at Google or Apple or something. All right, so while we're here, there's not a lot of TV series that have the year in it at TMDB. So this replace the trailing brackets part will remove the year if it ends up being added twice. And I have an example of that. Let's go back to the movie database and let's do Fantasy Island. So it's really easy at TMDB because if I click into this, the proper show name has the year in it, just like every movie does. Or if I click into that, there's the year. Or I click into that, there's the year. So the year tells one show apart from the other. If I do that here, well, here's Fantasy Island, and the year is part of the name. But here, it's not. So I think that's one of the reasons that Filebot doesn't put the year in for TV series, because it just might make things more confusing, and by default it adds the series ID from TMDB. Well, it's naming from TMDB, so it's got the year in it anyway, so strike that thought. Now, this isn't how it always works. So this Fantasy Island, one has the year, one doesn't. But if we look at The Office or Shameless, it's handled other ways. So The Office from the UK came out in 2001. It was the first Office. And then in 2005, it's rebooted for the US, and instead of putting the year in like they did with Fantasy Island, they added US in parentheses. Well, if we drop down, I don't know where PL is. I can't pronounce this word. Let's see. So there's more of The Office besides just the two series, it looks like. CA, would that be Canada? I imagine that's probably not a new series for The Office in Canada, but who knows? There's just other ways to differentiate one same name show at TMDB. So let's do Shameless next. So the original Shameless was on in the UK in 2004, and then the US rebooted on Showtime in 2011, and instead of this getting the year, it got US. So I don't know why, but just find it and it'll work. My Filebot expression adds the year automatically, and if we go back to Fantasy Island, if it is a series that already has, if it is a series at TMDB that already has the year as part of the official title, my special addition to the formatting prevents it from having the year added twice. Okay, so we've got all these expressions in, and again, if you want to see the default Filebot ones, hold down the Shift key. So let's see what happens with some of these series that I have set up. Alright, let me just check Plex for a second. I want to make sure I don't have a library set up. Alright, I'm on this test server, no library set up for what we're going to do. Alright, TV Filebot demo. I'm going to do these one at a time. I could do everything at once, but I have different expressions for different purposes. So actually, let's start with Seinfeld, because this is just named for the episodes. And we could set this up for DVD ordering if we wanted to. So this will be my example of someone who's ripping from a DVD, and maybe they just want to quickly rename the files based on the order they came off the DVD or Blu-ray by the episode name printed on the back of the jacket. So that's my example here. I'll open it with Filebot. So my default expression would be just this. This is aired ordering, creating structure, and we already know the busboy is out of order. DVD ordering, it's the 3rd episode. Aired ordering, it's the 12th episode. So Seinfeld on that date must have been preempted by another show. The normal episode didn't air, and at the end of the season it was added back in, but the director wanted it in this order. So episode 12, let's look at all our formatting. It's being set up in place. It's going to happen inside this media folder. It's getting the proper show name, the years being added, the source ID from TMDB is being added. Filebot knows it's season 02. Here's the episode name, Seinfeld, with a year in parentheses. We got the official separator. We got the season episode coding. We have the official separator again, the episode name with a space, and then in brackets, so it doesn't get scanned, is media characteristics. That's a beautiful file name. Now, if I was a purist and I wanted it to be DVD order, which I am going to change to, I would simply find my structure by DVD order, and I'll click that, and now this busboy should be episode 3. So we'll just remember that, because we're going to add that to a Plex library, and we'll have to change the library settings in order to have it scan in properly. Alright, so that's one down. So now let's do Ken Burns Films next. Again, this doesn't exist at TMDB, so if I hold down the Shift key and use the default organize episodes for Plex, Filebot doesn't know what it is. It can't identify the series. Now, if I use my default expression, Filebot will know what it is, and it creates this nice structure. So again, right in place, right in the same folder the series folder already is, it simply renames the series folder better. It adds the source ID. It has the season properly prepped, 1981, 1990, 2013, and so on. And it preps everything the same way. Now if I simply wanted to rename this, I could rename it from the TMDB right here, or right there, by air date. And now this is not creating structure. It will leave the previous structure alone, but it gives me the same file name. So I'm going to use my default expression, my new default expression, and we'll rename that. And now Filebot pops up with this validation screen, and these are just colons that are not legal characters. Clicking validate removes them, and now that series is renamed. If I refresh, we can go in and see how everything's just nice, very descriptive. All the Plexus convention. Alright, so let's do Fantasy Island next. And let me just try something here. Let me see what happens if we use structure by DVD order. Pick the right series, and if you hover your mouse over, it'll give you first air date. So I bet you there's no separate DVD order to this, but Filebot's just going to fall back on the aired ordering if there's no DVD order. So even if you pick the wrong expression, it's not going to hurt if there's not a different DVD ordering. So I'll pick that default expression again that I have highlighted with a 2, and I'll simply rename it. And again, because it's on a NAS, I have to refresh it to see that change. So now the Wonderful World of Disney might be a funny one. Let's open that up. This is listed at TMDB under 2 different series that are organized slightly different. It's the Wonderful World of Disney at the movie database, so we'll hold down the shift key and we'll show you Filebot's default expression, organize episodes for Plex. Alright, let's hover the mouse over. 1961, that's not right. Hover the mouse over this. 1997, that's not right. Hover the mouse over this. 1954, that's the one we want. So this is not going to change anything. Season 2803, Herbie Rides Again. Same season episode formatting, but see how there's a 1 after the love bug in Herbie Rides Again and the monkey's uncle? That's simply how it's listed at TMDB. Let's change to my normal one that names from TMDB. And again, we have to find the right show. Hover the mouse over. 1954 is the right year. We'll select it. And see how those 1s are added back in. Herbie Rides Again. The Love Bug. So they're listed a little bit differently. Same episode name, just a slight different episode name from one database to the other. And my library's always set up to name from TMDB in Plex, so I'll rename that. Now let's go into the beer. This incorporates what the Filebot developer helped me with last, part 1 and part 2. And again, remember, you have to have the expression of Filebot written to whatever format you're using. If I'm using PT1 or DVD 1 and 2, the Filebot expression has to know that. So if you're uniformly using the same type of part 1 and part 2 throughout your whole library, this expression will do it for you. If not, it will rename the first of 2 properly as a single episode, leaving the other one behind in other folder structure, in the original folder structure, which means you can simply copy it into where it belongs and rename them manually if you're not getting this extra bit of what the expression does. Alright, so let's open that with Filebot. And my default expression incorporates that type of a split file. So if I use it, I can recognize this from the poster. So if we slide over, oh, I am missing something. Let's go ahead and edit this expression. Let's see what I did wrong here. One miss isn't bad. Okay, so this is my issue. I have these named for part 1 and my expression is part PT1. So let's fix this because I'm going to leave it as I have it because I'm not using part 1, part 2 in my normal Plex library. I'm using PT1. So let me rename these all at once. All right, so those are all set now. Let's run them through Filebot again. Now I'll use that default expression. And now you see we've picked up the proper part or PT1 and PT2 on both episodes. So I'll rename that. Now we're approaching the hour mark, so we're just going to add this to a Plex series library, a new Plex series library. I'll show you how to pull episode ordering by default for TMDB earned ordering. And then I'll show you how to adjust this for DVD ordering at the show level. All right, so add a library, TV. We'll call it Filebot Demo. I'll browse for my media. Now my shared media folder on this NAS is called media, but the container defines that shared folder with the alias of my Plex media. So I click on that. I see all my sort folders. I'll click on the TV library sort folder, and then I'll click on the TV Filebot Demo actual library folder. I see my shows. I'll click add. And before I add library, I have to go to the advanced settings. So this is where if you're using Filebot's default expression that names from TMDB, you'll leave this alone. If you like my idea of the custom expressions that can do a little bit more, especially with a DVDB, or the DVD versus earned ordering, this is what you have to change. Now I can add the library, and I can go in, click the library tab, and I'll watch things slowly come in, and everything's going to pull the correct metadata. It can't miss because my Filebot expressions are close to perfect. And again, this is all just public domain, or no,
Good evening, Phil.
all just dummy files, so I can't get in trouble by showing any of it playing. So the only thing that's not correct is Seinfeld. If I click into it and go into the season 2, and I go down and find, well, episode 13. Let's see what's going on there. This is supposed to be the deal. And the busboy, if we look into the actual file name, is the Revenge. So this is because we've named to DVD ordering and it doesn't match the DVDB. We've named to DVDB DVD ordering and it doesn't match the earned ordering. So all we have to do is kind of wait for the scanning to stop, which it has. It's just detecting credits and intros. I need to edit this show, and you have to make sure you're at the show level, which I wasn't. Edit the show, go to advanced, and this episode ordering. Okay, so now you know this is my trial run. second time because Plex remembered all this. So I'm going to refresh metadata. Yes, this is my second attempt at this video. The first one cut off shortly after this spot, and I had to redo it. Okay, so now if we go in and examine things, the busboy is actually this wrong episode, and I don't know what's going on here. So you have to edit the show, go to advanced, you're going to get to the show level, edit it, go to advanced, change it to the TMDB DVD, save the changes, wait for it to finish, and then go to the three dots and refresh metadata. Now if we go into season 2, the busboy is episode 3 like it should be, and if we investigate it, it is the right episode. And if we slide down, we now have the 13th episode that pulls the proper metadata. It's the deal. And if we edit that, it's a match for how the episode is named. So you can't set the library globally to pull for DVD ordering, but you do need to set it for TMDB if you're naming from TMDB aired. And then anything that's DVD ordered, you have to manually adjust at the show level. So my recommendation is to find the aired ordering listing and name from that. And if you're ripping from a DVD or a Blu-ray, if the first CD has 4 or 5 or 6 episodes on it, they're going to come off in order based on how they're named. Don't bother with a season 01 EO2 coding. Name it for what the episode is listed on the back of the case, because then you can run it through Filebot and just pick the aired ordering listing that you want, and it will rename it properly. The problem with DVD ordering is if you've got a library that has 800 TV shows in it and 30 of them are set manually to DVD ordering, if your Plex world crashes, if your server gets a corrupt database that you can't recover from, or the Plex server itself implodes and you can't get back to where you were, but your media survives, you now have to remember which of those 30 out of 800 TV shows was set for DVD ordering and go adjust that manually. Otherwise, your metadata is going to be borked for some of those episodes in those 30 shows. If you simply get everything to aired ordering, if you have something catastrophic happen and all your media is backed up, you restore your media and you make one library change when you're adding the library to just pull ordering from TMDB, and everything scans in perfectly, no fuss, no muss. So sometimes you have to experience problems to then know how to do things better, and that's just a little warning. So, thanks for watching. I know this is an incredibly long video, but it's hard to cover everything with Filebot for movies and TV series, and my custom expressions do a lot. And again, I would never tell someone not to use the default Filebot expressions. They're wonderful, but that assumes everything is default in Plex. It assumes the TV show library is pulling episode ordering from TMDB. It assumes you're never going to add a series that is only listed at TMDB. Now you could, let me just be fair, you could set your library up that way and then manually name something like this, and at the show level you can still have the library set for default for TMDB and still change to the TMDB aired ordering, but at TMDB DVD ordering, I mean to say. But then again, if something catastrophic happened, you'd have to remember which series would need their advanced settings changed. My way, Nothing ever has to be changed. You can point a new Plex server at the same media. If it's a network share, you could have 5 different Plex servers on different hardware all pointing to the same media. It's going to scan in exactly the same on every single new Plex instance pointed at it. I can't say the same thing for Filebot's default expressions with some of the media. It's certainly not going to work that way if you rip your own media and you're depending on DVD ordering. But just the TMDB error ordering is the best. And I guess I always have something to say. I can't end a video. Let me go into this as an example. The reboot of Battlestar Galactica. I'm not going to show it at TMDB, but if you go into the specials there, you're not going to have 40 specials. So there's always a reason not to use TMDB and always a reason to use TVDB instead. And I'm sure if you have a decent sized Plex series library, you've got enough shows in it that your life is easier, or would have been easier, to just start with a TVDB error ordering to start with. Okay, so now I'm going to end at 1 hour and 6 minutes. Happy Plexing, and I appreciate you watching.